It's Dee Dee on the spot.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone to please like and subscribe down below. If you enjoy this content, we greatly appreciate it. We have Tara Green-Weber on the show. She's a Canadian powerlifter coming to us. She's our third guest, I think, from the Great White North, right above us. Tara, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory? What got you into the health and fitness lifestyle? What inspired you to pick up weights and just start lifting?
I was probably maybe around 11 or 12. I was competing in freestyle skiing and just doing like the dryland training and stuff. We started going to like the Y here in Prince George, and that was the first time I'd ever been into a gym. And my coach, he had always just kind of expected that I would be able to keep up with everyone else on the team, even though I was one of the youngest people. So I think I never had that where people didn't think that I could, they'd give me something easier because I was a girl. So I think that, yeah, that was my first real introduction, and that's kind of what made me really like it. Like, I've always liked being strong and fast and that kind of thing.
Did you find that you adjusted really quickly or that your body really developed really quickly when it came to lifting weights, or did it take a little bit of time? What was that process like?
No, for me, I've always kind of been more muscular. Mm-hmm. Like, my dad tells me, even when I was 4 years old, I'd have little friends over and he'd give us all piggyback rides, and I was a ton of bricks compared to some of my friends. So yeah, I've always been more athletic and stronger.
Were your parents built? Is it just in genetics, or was it just you just got the lucky batch?
I've just very recently found out my birth parents. Oh. So I have a Ukrainian background.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, from talking with, I've been in contact with my biological aunt, and from the sounds of it, yeah, my biological family, at least one side of it is, they're kind of built. So I think that I get some of that. Wow. Definitely genetically, for sure. Yeah.
And what would you say was your biggest struggle when you started out with the serious weight training? Was it either the nutrition, or was it just the constant working out? What was that for you?
From the time that I've started, I've always loved it. I wouldn't say there's I've always really enjoyed being sore and feeling worn out after a workout. So I wouldn't say initially I ever really had a ton of struggles. I've always really enjoyed it, and I kind of knew from, a younger age that this is sort of what I wanted to do, I think.
Was there a certain moment in your training when you realized, hey, I could do bodybuilding, hey, I could become a powerlifter? Was there a certain moment, or did it just, as you gradually progressed over time, people just started coming up to you and saying, hey, you could go and do this? What was that?
Yeah, when I was working at the Y, I had a really great boss, and she had been into the bodybuilding end of it, and she kind of told me it's not kind of all it's it looks like on the outside, and you're really strong, and she actually put me in contact with my current husband. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I got into powerlifting instead of anything else.
Okay, now that I found that out, I have to ask, because I'm just a sucker for those type of things. I asked 3 questions. First, how did you guys meet?
I came to the gym actually because I was doing CrossFit at the time, and I wanted to learn Olympic lifting. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got to X conditioning. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing a training session there with one of the guys, mm-hmm. and Mike and the others that train just for powerlifting, they just kind of saw me and they're like, wow, you're pretty strong. You should probably just train with us all the time.
That's awesome. So what was your guys' first date?
Oh, first date. Oh, I don't even know. Well, we maybe Pizza Hut, sharing one of those like heart-shaped pizzas.
Yeah. Hey, a
So
first
that-
it's a first date. Getting pizza, there's nothing wrong with that. And lastly, I'm just a huge sucker for these proposal stories. How did he propose?
Oh, well, we were in Vegas, and he said, we were there. I was gonna compete in the Olympia. He was gonna do GPC World, and we were sitting there, and he said, "Hey, you want to get married today?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we went off to the little white wedding chapel that's on, what's that show? The Hangover.
Yeah.
Got married there.
Now I gotta ask, how quickly do they process it when you go and ask for a wedding? Do they normally just give you like a little time frame, like, oh, just wait a certain amount of time? What was that process like? I've always been interested in that.
Oh, all we had to do, we had to get a marriage license from like the county or whatever. So we went down to City Hall at like 11:30 at night. And then we made our way to the chapel, and it was under an hour for sure.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
pretty quick.
That's awesome. That's got to be one of my favorite proposals. I've heard like 4 of them on now, and that's got to be my favorite one, just because it's the Vegas. But going back to when you were starting working out, did you find it hard to maintain the nutrition aspect? Because what a lot of people don't know is that when you do start working out seriously and putting on muscle or putting on size, you do have to eat usually a lot more than you had eaten even before you started working out. Was that a struggle for you, the amount of eating that you had to do?
No, I think I had a really good background in that because when I was a little kid, I'd be over at my grandparents' house, and my grandpa, he'd tell me that like I'd flex after every bite of food I took, and he'd tell me that he could see my muscle getting bigger, so that kept me.
So you're
So I've
basically like
always been a big eater.
Popeye then.
Yeah, pretty much.
So when did you finally decide to do a show or to compete? Was there a certain moment, or did it just over time you were just said, like, hey, I want to do this?
Oh, it was only like my first powerlifting meet was only a few months after I started at the gym. I mean, the guys they were all going to compete, and they're like, oh, you might as well come. You'll probably do pretty well. So yeah, that was my very first show. I just kind of got thrown right into it.
And I've always wanted to talk. I mean, I have a lot of up-and-coming bands on the show and a lot of health and fitness people, and I like to ask the similar question. Like with the bands, I ask, what's it like performing live? What's that feeling like? Because not too many people get to experience that rush, that high. And when you're at a powerlifting meet, what is that like when you have all these people watching you, especially the bigger powerlifting meets, and then you have to perform something? Does that really just pump you full of a lot of adrenaline and really help you when it comes to the lifts?
Yeah, it does for sure. Like I don't really see the crowd. Generally, I just kind of look straight ahead, right at the head judge, and yeah, like it doesn't bother me really. And I was kind of surprised by that because I used to get really nervous when I would compete in skiing. Mm-hmm. Like I kind of have trouble eating, in the morning and that kind of thing. But I never really had that with powerlifting. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. So when you're doing your lifts, are there certain techniques that powerlifters use? Because obviously a lot of bodybuilders or fitness people that I have on talk about how they don't lift their maxes usually because they don't want to get injured. Are there certain techniques that powerlifters use because they are doing a lot of max lifts that they use in order to help prevent injuries? Because a lot of injuries can come from, maxing out. What are some techniques that you use?
Oh, I mean, the biggest thing is just like our training team. Like, our like max effort lower day is always on Saturday. So we always have a lot of people around. Like at any time there's a minimum of 3 spotters. Like when my husband's lifting, it's usually 5, just for safety. And, and we take our time, like, it's kind of a process. Like you don't just kind of walk up and then just do it. Like, actually, I probably have the longest setup of anyone. Probably, I probably come close to timing out because you only have a minute and all that. But
I've always been interested in those things, those get-ups that they usually wear when you're doing powerlifting. Those super tight, sort of. I don't really know what to call them. They're kind of like they have the tank top thing and then they're super tight. Or is that just for? What are those specifically for? Is it so that you don't contract as much when you're lifting? Is there a purpose behind that?
Oh, so for in raw lifting, you have to wear a singlet.
Oh.
So yeah, like it's just like kind of like spandex or whatever, and that's mostly just so that that's so the judges can see, because when you're squatting, they're looking for like the crease of your hip, because they're trying to approximate like about where your femur is, and that has to get lower than the top of your kneecap. So if you're wearing like baggy stuff, they wouldn't be able to see very well. And then also for bench press, they want to see if your butt is coming off the bench or not. Oh. So that's why it's got to be so tight.
Yeah. So did you find it difficult? Because everyone knows that a lot of people have misconceptions when it comes to how you lift the weights, especially if you're doing like bench press. A lot of people just go like all the way down, or there's a lot of misconceptions on how to do it. Did you find it difficult at first to kind of learn the exact right way on how to do lifts, because so many people have so many different opinions on how to do them?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to, try. Like, there's only a handful of like, I guess, kind of like proper ways to do it, but I mean, not everyone does it exactly the same, and you have to try a few different things till you find what works for you. Like, there's definitely a lot of people that will say, you want to kind of touch lower, and then you want to push the bar back in an arc for bench. And then West Side Barbell, they've advocated always for just a straight, pushing the bar up in a straight line. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to ever completely discount anything. It's good to try things and find out like exactly what's going to work for you, right?
Now, so that you and your husband are both weightlifters, have you found that it's sometimes a rivalry to determine who can do better than each other? Is there ever sort of a competition between you two?
Well, he has to keep his bench press higher than my squat.
Oh. Has he ever fallen below that?
Not yet, but this meet it's going to happen.
What's the punishment going to be if he gets it wrong? Does he have to like do extra workouts or something?
Well, no. See, he actually needs a shoulder replacement, so I've kind of got an unfair advantage.
Oh well, that helps out a little bit, I guess. So one of the things, I mean, I started working out a lot when I was in college, and one of the things that I found out when I started getting bigger and developing more was that, unfortunately, one of the bad things for me at least is that people are going to ask you to move a lot of furniture. They're going to ask you to open pickle jars. They're going to ask you to do all that sorts of stuff. Have you found that to be similar? Do people always come up to you and say like, "Oh, hey, can you help me open this pickle jar?" Or, "Hey, we need someone moving furniture." Especially you and your husband too. Do you guys get a lot of requests for that?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we definitely do. But as long as it doesn't interfere with our workout schedule.
I was going to say my summer is just jam-packed usually with weekends where people are like, "Oh, hey, we're moving furniture. Can you help us move this couch? Can you help us move?" And I just got to I got to do it sometimes, but yeah, it gets very annoying after a while. And one of my favorite questions to ask, especially the health and fitness women that we have on the show, is that they don't necessarily make a lot of clothes that are designed for people that have those muscles and that have that physique. Have you found it difficult to get clothes, and how do you sort of compensate for that?
Oh yeah, finding clothes is very difficult. Since I've started at the gym, I've gone through probably 2 complete wardrobe changes where I've just had to basically get all brand new clothing. Yeah, I mean, your butt and your legs get bigger, your waist gets smaller, and they really don't make clothes for that. Like generally things don't fit around like my shoulder and armpit. So, but yeah, I mean, I've at the gym, it's lucky. Like I'm lucky I get to. It's not like I have to wear dress clothes or anything. I get to wear nice, comfy Lululemon. So
ooh, nice. Have you found that I've always asked this question because I found it interesting. Have you found, because there is such a stereotype that like people with a lot of muscles or people that look big might not be super nice? Have you found that you sometimes have to overcompensate and be extra nice to people to sort of put them at ease?
Yeah, people always assume that I'm mean,
yeah,
and that I'd be really good at fighting, but neither of which are true.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know. I get that a lot from the people that I talk to, and it's just it's one of those things where you kind of just have to work around it. But when it comes to your powerlifting shows as well, how is the competition really in Canada? Because like you said, you live 8 hours kind of north of Vancouver. Are there many female powerlifters in the area, or do you have to travel a lot in order to get a good competition?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much go to like the invite-only shows because that's where the best competition is. And yeah, there's not a lot in Canada. I mean, at our gym, there's a handful of us that compete. Two of us actually, we got invited to the Kern U.S. Open, which is the biggest raw powerlifting meet in the world. I don't know how many other gyms have two people that were invited to that, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, like there's only a handful of us probably in the country really that compete. There's only a couple of us that compete like in the equipped lifting. So where we're wearing like the squat suits and the bench shirts and that kind of thing. So for that, I mean, we definitely have to travel. Like,
what's the traveling prospect been like for you? I mean, because you do get to travel all around. Do you enjoy the travel?
Oh, I enjoy it once I get there. But the actual travel itself is really horrible.
Yeah.
As I've got more muscular, I find the less comfortable I am sitting in one position. So being on the plane sucks, and yeah, I mean, and then you're stuck in this.
Just basically having to just like go as small as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean that's not. But yeah. Definitely not comfortable.
Yeah. Have you found when it comes to, I mean, people's reactions, have you found them to be generally positive? I know that there's always a few trolls out there that might try to say like mean stuff, but I find like with Instagram especially, I love to talk about that because it's such a positive community, usually the health and fitness and the powerlifting community too, where you post something, people are just super nice, like 99% of the time they're super nice and positive. Does that really help you when it comes to influence you to keep on going? And then with the negative comments, how do you sort of deal with that? You just kind of just shake it off?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it's fun when there's lots of people that are liking your stuff, and yeah, it makes you feel good about it. But yeah, I mean there's always the people that think it's that as a woman with big muscles that you're gross or whatever. But I mean, I kind of grew up with that. There's definitely some people, or like I grew up with even in high school that were not that nice. So yeah, I mean, like now there's so many people that are supportive that I mean I don't even make the time for people that want to be mean or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. And plus, I mean, those are the people that only bench like 50 pounds anyway, so they're just jealous. Most of the time, they just feel threatened and intimidated. It's so stupid. I talk to everyone about that. It's one of the dumbest things ever because it's like, why would you hate on someone for being healthy and being fit and being active? They're actually doing what's best for them. I just completely don't understand that. But going from, like you said, having sort of a rough time growing up with just how you were, just based on being born, basically. Did you find it a weird adjustment to go from people, somewhat giving you a hard time to then people all of a sudden like being super nice to you and being really positive about it? Was that just a weird adjustment for you mentally?
Yeah, actually it was. Like, it wasn't really until I started training at X Conditioning, where, people thought that it was cool that I was as strong as I am and that kind of thing. So.
All right, now here's the time when you're going to embarrass us all. So could you tell us your best lifts that you've done for powerlifting?
So for equipped powerlifting, my best squat is 640.
Jeez.
My best bench is 385.
Oh my god.
And my best deadlift, I think it's 512 or 517.
All right, I definitely after this I'm gonna go hit the gym really, really hard after this. Yeah, that is unbelievable. So when you're lifting that much, have there ever come times where like the barbell bends when you're trying to lift it? Because I've seen people like videos online where if you put enough weight on it, do you ever have that as a concern that maybe like the stuff might actually break?
Oh no, because we have all like the specialty bars.
Oh yeah.
Like our squat bar is 65 pounds. So like with the weight I'm lifting, it's barely bending.
Oh yeah.
And then the deadlift bar is meant to bend. So yeah, you can definitely get some good whip out of that one.
What is your favorite lift to do, and what is your least favorite lift to do?
Oh, well, that kind of changes based on what's going well at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like I squat is always the most fun, I guess, but it's always like I feel so good to get it done and out of the way because
Yep.
it's hard to get to depth when you're in gear, especially raw. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but so yeah, I mean, it's kind of a love-hate relationship with that.
Do you make sure in your schedule to, sort of have a day after you do legs that you kind of just have a day of relaxation? Because me personally, I mean, even walking out of the gym can be a struggle for me, so I got to, definitely plan a different. Do you make sure to kind of include that when you're training legs?
Like our training is 4 days a week, so there's a day after both our lower body days, where we're not training like with weights, but we're still doing like recovery type stuff. So like generally on Sundays we go out mountain biking, like on the trails around here and that kind of thing, or we'll go into the gym and do some stuff like pushing the prowler sled and like just kind of like some cardio type stuff.
So what would you say is the biggest difference between the bodybuilding and the powerlifting diet? Because there are, I mean, obviously the two different types of sports, the athletes look different than each other. So what would you say is the difference when it comes to the nutrition aspect?
Well, like now there's kind of powerlifters are realizing that they need to just generally be healthier so that they can recover better and then their lifting will be better. So I'd say that they're coming closer together. Like my diet right now isn't that far from what it was when I was prepping for the physique show. The only thing is like things that I couldn't include, like colored vegetables and like cottage cheese and that kind of thing. I include things that are healthy but wouldn't have fit into like the physique diet.
Yeah. And how do you sort of deal mentally? Because, I mean, when it comes to powerlifting, it's different than bodybuilding, because bodybuilding, you're being judged kind of, and you can, sort of do stuff to improve. But on powerlifting, you could just be having a bad day, and you won't be able to put up the weight that maybe you could have easily put up a day prior or the day after that. How do you sort of deal with that mentally, knowing that, a lot of things have to go right in order for you to get that lift accomplished, especially, mentally and physically?
Well, we do as much as we can to set ourselves up for success. Like, we're going in for like vitamin IVs before we travel and while we're getting close to the meet. We set up our training so that we're trying to peak for that day. But yeah, I mean, there's always things that can kind of go throw you off or whatever. But it's always, whenever we go into the gym, 2 days a week anyways, it's always max effort day. And it's always, you're trying to lift the most you can on that day. So I think just doing that all year long kind of sets you up to kind of deal with that on meet day.
What are some hobbies that you like to do when you're not working out? Because like you say, you're only in the gym 4 days a week. So what do you like to do on those other 3 days?
Mostly like in the summer, like to we have a little French bulldog, and he goes out with us. We take him out mountain biking and that kind of thing. And I really like just being outside.
Do you have him like a Wizard of Oz thing where he's like in a thing on top of the bike, or do you just have him pulling around?
Oh no, he can go for a good 12 kilometers with us.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome. He's a little athlete.
What's his name?
Dozer.
Dozer? Oh, that's a great name.
Yeah.
That's a great name. So now we go to our audience favorite part of the podcast, the little questionnaire where I'll ask about a dozen or so questions, just some fun questions, sort of a getting to know you better. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song?
Oh, I like Hungry by Rob Bailey.
Hungry Rob Bailey? Yeah, that's a great one. Now, if you could train with any celebrity on the planet, who would you train with?
Oh. Celebrity. Jeez. I don't know. Celebrity. That's a tough one. Well, I mean, I guess it would have to be like the world's best like powerlifting coach, Louis Simmons. I don't know if most people would consider him a celebrity, but I do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, in circles, almost everyone's a celebrity. So absolutely, that's actually a great answer. So, what is one thing that you always need to have in your fridge?
Meat.
Yep. What do you prefer? Do you prefer chicken, or do you prefer or pork, or what's your go-to?
Oh, beef for sure.
Beef. Yep.
I really like just I mean, I love steak.
Yeah.
But like steak, ground beef.
Are there a lot of stores that sell the healthy beef around where you live, or do you kind of have to order them online, or do you have to either? I know some people make them themselves. How do you do that?
Most of our meat comes from Costco, but there's a ton of farms around here. So yeah, like we can get bison and all that, like, from people we know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
That makes it.
Yeah, because my grandpa, he used to make deer meat because they just had a lot. They had a lot of stuff down there, so I definitely like the home meat stuff. It can be really, really good. But when it comes to TV shows, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Oh, probably Atypical.
Atypical?
Yeah.
I've heard about that, but I've never seen it. Was it any good?
Oh yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Suits.
Suits?
Definitely Suits.
Yeah, that's a good one. Now, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Oh, I don't even know if I could name a fashion trend. Well, right now that whole white hair thing, I think that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Favorite fashion trend. Well, yoga pants being like acceptable.
Yeah, that's so. I can imagine that's only made it so much easier for a lot of women too. But I gotta say, my favorite. I'm a sucker for flannel. Anything flannel shirts, flannel jacket. But least favorite, I gotta go with like Uggs or something like Crocs.
That's a good one.
I mean, it's like, come on, people, you gotta get with it. So, what was one item that you would die to have if it went up for auction?
Item, huh? Well, I really want a lake house.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah,
that would be it. Yeah, that would be awesome. So, what is one thing that people who would follow you on Instagram and social media would be surprised to find out if they met you in person?
Well, my friends, they really joke a lot about my need to have everything really clean and tidy. So maybe that.
Yeah. So what is one habit that you wish that you could break?
One habit. Huh. Maybe taking a long time to answer questions.
Oh, no, you're doing a great job. No worries about it at all. No, you're actually doing really, really good. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. So, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, your husband could probably answer that, but we don't, yeah. That's a whole, we had one where the husband, like, pitched in, like, from the side. He's like, yeah, she doesn't wash or clean as good as that turned into a whole thing. So, yeah, we don't do that anymore. So... If you could live in any historical era other than the one that we're living in right now, is there a certain area what area would you prefer to live in?
Well, probably like Roman times.
Mm-hmm.
Although they're, the whole, hygiene thing is a little bit, concerning. So.
See, I think about that all the time because I asked this to everyone, and then one person yesterday finally came up with the answer that I was looking for. She's like, probably like the 80s, and I said, well, why that? And then she said the reason I say the same thing. Because if you went back to some place, like obviously, if it wasn't for all these factors, I'd probably go back to that era too, but like you'd probably get disease and you'd die by the age of like 15, or then like for me, I'd probably end up getting drafted and dying at like 18 in some battle, so I was like, oh, I'm pretty content right here. But yeah, for the 80s or some place like that would be me. Now, if you could have dinner or lunch with any historical figure, who would it be?
Historical figure. Huh. Well, how about that, that giant guy?
Oh, the mountain?
No, the guy, he died recently.
Oh, Phil Heath?
Andre. No,
Andre the Giant. Yeah.
He was actually giant.
That's okay. So I have actually a fun story about him. So I'm from Bloomington, Minnesota. We used to have the Met Center where the Minnesota North Stars used to play, the old hockey team that we had here before we got the Wild. And Andre the Giant was doing a wrestling match right there, and my uncle worked for that venue. So after the wrestling match was over, Andre came out, and it's pretty obvious to my uncle. He said that he was very, very intoxicated, but he was asking people for a cab. So then my uncle gave him a cab, and just for literally turning around and saying to someone, "Hey, can we get a cab here?" Andre the Giant gave my uncle, and this is 1978 or whatever, gave my uncle $100 tip. So that's been always my uncle's. So he's my uncle's favorite after then. So that's the Andre the Giant story that I have. And now we have a few questions here to wrap up. But what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh. I'm going to have to say mint chocolate chip.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, what is one thing that you find funny that other people don't, that only you find funny?
Oh, geez. You're asking some tough questions here.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Oh, see, right now there's a whole thing on social media where people are outraged at Gracie B for her. Mm-hmm. I find it a little funny and think people have completely blown it out of proportion. But yeah, a lot of people are up in arms about that one.
Now, if you could change one thing about powerlifting, what would it be?
Oh, there would be way less federations because just, I want to know how strong I am compared to everyone. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really care how strong I am, compared to just the people that happen to show up at the meet that day. Like, so there's so many federations and there's so many meets everywhere. Like, it would be great if they could just, have a few different ones, and then you'd kind of know where you are. Mm-hmm.
When it comes to, I know, especially powerlifting, I mean, is it hard for you to sometimes with the results that you get? I mean, because you're not going to, like you said, you benched like 380 or something. You're not going to go from that or whatever it was. You're not going to go from that to like 450 just like over a period of months. Like, it's going to be a slow increase. Is that sometimes hard for you when you realize that, like, hey, I might only go up 5 pounds after a few months in my bench press, or does it just make the sacrifice and all the hard work even more worth it just to have those slow increases?
Yeah, I mean, like when I first started, like I was getting 50 pounds, 100 pounds more, each meet I went to, and then you kind of, you get maybe some little injuries and that kind of thing, and you just kind of, start to kind of plateau, and then that's where, you kind of get, you separate the people that really love it from, the people that were just kind of there just kind of as a hobby. And it's definitely been, it's kind of tough to accept that, like I might go to a meet and, but like it's led me to kind of set more realistic goals. Like I'm happy to go up, like I want to go up 10 pounds per year in my deadlift until I get to 550. So yeah, just having to set, those more realistic goals instead of these really lofty goals. Like I'm gonna squat 100 pounds more than I ever have. Like it just doesn't happen at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and when it comes to the federations, could you explain to us kind of what that is? Because a lot of people, when they hear federations, are like, "What?" So you have different leagues. So what is it like for powerlifting for federations, and how do you personally think they could fix it?
Oh, there's like even in Canada, there's got to be 4 or 5 different ones. Wow. And in the States, I mean, there's probably got to be a dozen or more. And yeah, I mean, if what's kind of happened is, the people don't like a certain rule that's in a federation, so they start another one, or they don't like some of the people or some of the refs in the federation, so they start another one. And unfortunately, it's kind of watered it down a bit. But luckily, there's a few federations that are kind of trying to, like the Gracie B meet, and then the WPO is the meet we're going to in November in Florida. They're trying to make it like it's invite only, and it's only like the top people that can go. So yeah, they're trying to I guess give people that platform to lift on where it's just the best.
So when you're saying referees, do the referees, do they just basically make sure that like you go all the way down, like when you're doing bench, or when you go all the way down when you're doing squat? Are they just kind of there to make sure that you do the lifts properly?
That's right. Yeah, like there's 3 of them, and you get a white light if the lift is good, or a red light if the lift is bad. So yeah, generally in squat, it's people don't go low enough, or they kind of lose their balance at the top or something like that. Bench, generally it's people, their butt comes off, or they, don't quite lock the bar out, or it's like really uneven, and that kind of thing. And they're there to judge whether or not you're following all those things.
I see a lot on YouTube, and a lot of people post it. Sometimes those images, like those powerlifting fails, where people will just fall all the way down, or they won't be able to control the bar when it comes down, and they can get really, really injured. Have you ever had any close calls like that? And how do you deal with that mentally when you come that close to just basically wrecking yourself to still go back and do another lift after that? Does it just take saying like, oh, it was a freak thing, I'll be more careful next time?
Yeah, I mean, generally, like those kind of catastrophic ones, like usually the person's injured and can't really come back. And then, yeah, you'll see some where the person just kind of like dumps the bar off their back. For that, it's more the spotters that they're really, kind of putting in danger. And so that's why there's rules to kind of prevent that sort of thing. Because, yeah, some people they'll just bail and not worry about anyone else.
Yeah.
I've never had that, but
yeah. Oh yeah, and that's great, because I know I've seen all those times, and I was like, first of all, what are those floors usually made out of to deal with it? Like if you're slamming down like 500 pounds, you'd think a normal floor would just rip in half. Are they just made of special stuff that makes sure that it can help absorb the blast of like someone just dropping it?
Oh, some meets you go to, it's just it's actually just like the floor that's in the hotel. Yeah. Like ballroom type thing. So it's just like carpet with, and then, but like generally they're like, there's a platform made of plywood and carpet on top. So then that can absorb it. But yeah, I mean, the bar, other than for deadlifting, it's not meant to ever end up on the ground.
So have you ever thought about trying out for the Olympics for this stuff? Because I mean, with your lifts, I mean, those are pretty high up for a lot of the Olympic lifters too, probably even better than some have. Has that ever been a consideration for you?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, Olympic lifting's so different though.
Oh, okay.
So like I think you can go to Commonwealth Games for powerlifting, but then that's in like so there's raw, there's single ply, and then there's multiply categories. So that's like single ply. Not a ton of people do it. It's like raw lifting is way more popular right now. And I've considered it, but like I really love, I like raw because it's very straightforward. Like it's not like lifting in gear where you have to worry about choosing a weight that you can get to depth to, but also come back up with easy enough. But then like I love multiply just because that's where you're lifting huge weights. Like you'll see guys squatting 1,200 pounds at the meet that we're going to.
Yeah.
So
that's unbelievable. So have you ever like helped coach people? Have you ever trained people? Is that something that you've done before?
Oh yeah, like that's like my husband and I, like we're like part owners of a gym here in town, and that's what we do. Like that's what we get to do for a living.
That's awesome. So when you're recruiting people, what do you say is the biggest excuse that you usually get when people like don't want to adapt a more healthy lifestyle?
Oh, I mean, generally people just say they don't have time.
Yep.
Right. Like, but there's one of our training partners. Like she's getting her nursing degree right now. She's got 3 like huge dogs at home.
Yep.
And she still makes time. She comes to the gym at 6 a.m. She runs home to go and let the dogs out. Right after she's done school. and then often she's got to, study until bedtime. So if you love it enough, you'll make the time.
And before we wrap it up here, so where can people get a hold of you? Where can people contact you if they're interested in maybe seeking some training or just seeking some advice? I mean, I know we'll leave the link down to your Instagram down below, but are there any other places? Do you have like a website for your gym that people could look at?
Yeah, if they just go to www.xconditioning.com, it's all there.
All right, yeah, I'll leave a link down below for that. And then before we wrap it up here, I like to ask every guest 2 final questions towards the end. And the first one would be, if someone were to walk up to you on the street and just say like, "Oh, hey, obviously you look awesome. I want to look like that." What would be your best piece of advice to them in order to be successful when starting out, maybe in the more powerlifting style?
Oh, just find a decent program, and you got to stick to it. Like, people, kind of, they want easy gains, and they want it to come, quick, right? Like, but the biggest thing you got to realize is you got to just stick to it. And I mean, that's where you get the gains. It's just in consistency.
Yep. And lastly, if you could talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh, don't neglect your recovery work. That's what I'd say.
Oh, that is a great answer. So, again, you guys, we were very, very grateful for you coming on. It's the first powerlifter we've had. Oh, wait. First, I forgot, because you're Canadian. I forgot. I have 2 questions that I like to ask our Canadian guests, too. First of all, what would you say is the biggest difference between Canadians and Americans when it comes to just, overall? Is it different? Do they have different, like, styles of what they do? Or what would you say is a huge difference?
Oh, there's no there's no huge differences. We're just we're just generally more reserved.
Yeah.
In Canada. I've actually found that in the States, people are very friendly and way more likely to just talk to you. When you go in an elevator.
Yeah.
Whereas in Canada, people just kind of yeah, we're polite, but we're also quiet and sometimes just not as friendly.
That I get that a lot too, because in Minnesota we almost have the Canadian thing too, where we have Minnesota nice, but we're a lot more reserved as well. And secondly, do you live in the part of Canada, and this has always been just strange to me, the part of Canada where they have milk in bags? Do you live in that area, or is that just on the east coast of Canada?
Yeah, I've never seen a milk bag.
Okay.
I think that's probably just an East Coast thing.
Okay, I was going to say, because that to me is the strangest thing ever. That's the one thing about Canada that I just do not understand. It's definitely an interesting thing, but yeah, I've always wanted to. Maybe on my bucket list is to go up there and just try it and see what it's like. I have no idea though. But again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on, and I'll leave the link down below. You can go and follow her. She's a powerlifter. I mean, just watching her and some of those lifts, I mean, it's going to inspire you to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies, get in better shape. And again, I mean, thanks so much for coming on. We learned a lot, and if you need anything, I mean, if you ever have any lifts coming up or whatever, just let me know, and I can go give a shout out to and make sure that people come and either watch it if it's on live somewhere, or if people are in the area who would like to see it. I mean, and for everyone out there, it is inspiring watching people lift those massive amounts. I mean, it really makes you realize that anything can be done and anything's possible, and it's just so super inspiring. And I mean, you guys, in my opinion, you guys don't get enough appreciation that you guys really do deserve, because prep and just going through all the training that you guys do is it can be so hard on you, and you guys just still persevere. So I mean, more kudos to you, and it was just awesome having you on.
Great, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.